Marion Turner runs GranPart. She lives in Bugbrook, which is where we find her this afternoon, having originally lived a little bit closer to Milton Keynes, where GranPart is based. She used to live in Far Bletchley. Marion, good afternoon. How are you?
Afternoon, John. Thank you.
And
thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, not too bad at all, thank you. How are you getting on with Northamptonshire, given that you crossed over the border in February of this year?
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Well, welcome to the county. Tell me how GranPart first came about, because you're a grandmother yourself, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes. It came about because I don't see my grandson. He's almost 3 now, and I haven't seen him for nearly 2 years. Basically because it's sort of inspired because when he got married, the person he got married to already had 2 very small children, and we didn't really gel, the daughter-in-law and I, and that happens sometimes. I think, unfortunately, you always think when your son gets married you're going to gain a daughter, but unfortunately in this instance it just wasn't there. And then not long after they got married, my first grandson came along, and unfortunately it got worse because, well, I'm not really quite sure. Well, I still can't really get my head around why it got worse. I think it was just the fact that she probably thought that was my maternal grandson, and I was going to think a lot more of that grandchild than I was of her children, of which I hadn't really, just over a year, formed a bond with because she kind of wouldn't let me. And basically it just went from bad to worse. My son went along with it, so I was shut out. There was really nowhere for me to go with it, even though I kept trying.
And what did that do to the relationship that you have with your son, never mind your grandchild?
Well, that's non-existent, and unfortunately has been really since my grandchild was born, because he kind of just went along with her, which, although I didn't do anything, because he sided with her, i.e. and not letting me go over, not bringing them to see me, then, it's just very heartbreaking, and it's something that I still can't get my head round, because it's something you can't get over, because that bond now, I mean, I haven't seen him since just before he was a year old, and that bond now has gone, and it was me that decided not to put myself through it anymore, because, it is heartbreaking. So I decided, for my own sanity, just to cut all my ties.
That must make times like Christmas, which we're about to arrive at, and Easter, and birthdays, and, well, school, all of those things that perhaps other grandparents kind of take for granted because they do have a fully engaged relationship with their grandchildren. That must make those particular milestone points during the year really tough for you and possibly for your grandson, because your grandson doesn't know grandma.
Well, that's right, and unfortunately he's got 2 other sets of grandparents, so I'm probably a bit obsolete anyway. But yes, it does. Probably more so Christmas, because when you're out Christmas shopping and you see all the grandmas and granddads taking their grandchildren round to see Santa, and you kind of think, oh, I'm never going to have that. So, it is a bit heart-wrenching.
Does it make you feel, as somebody who is obviously maternal because you are a mother, does it make you feel as though there is, I don't know, part of you that is missing because you don't have that relationship?
Oh, definitely, because like you said earlier, the mums and dads work now, and sometimes grandmas go and pick them up from school and have them after school, and I'd never had that bond, and I'll never have it now. So, I've missed out on all of that.
That is your story, and bless you for telling it as candidly as you did. You've set up what is effectively a self-help group. You've called it GranPart, and you've done it in Milton Keynes, which is a very highly populated part of the UK. If you can get through the navigation of it, fabulous. You can go and find all kinds of people. How prevalent is this particular issue that you've just outlined in yourself with other people?
Well, it wasn't until I started talking to other people about my problem, because you do when you're sitting having a cup of coffee with somebody and someone will say, oh, how's your grandson, and it'll all come out. Then I didn't realise how many people out there have this same problem. They might have it for different reasons, but the initial outcome is always the same. They don't see their grandchildren. And some of it's been going on for years. Some of the grandchildren in the group that I run, some of the grandmothers, the grandchildren are sort of 12, 13, even older, I think up to about 23. And it's all across the country. There are lots of people out there. But when it happened to me, I kind of went on the internet trying to find someone I could talk to other than my family, because, to be honest, they probably got fed up with me keep ranting on about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only because it's so close to your heart. And so every time someone says something, you end up talking about it. And I couldn't find anything. And it said, if you can't find anything, start one up yourself. So I did.
You did.
It was unfortunate. It came at a time when we had actually sold our house. But I thought, well, if I'm only going to do them once a month, Milton Keynes isn't a million miles away. I can still do it. And I'm glad I did. It's taking a little while to take off, but my first one I had was in June. But now I've got regulars that come, and they like it because they can sit there and talk in a very relaxed atmosphere to others in the same situation, and we all know exactly where each other are coming from.
It must be a difficult thing for a grandparent to almost admit to when you walk into a room and you say, look, I don't have a relationship with my grandchildren, and for whatever reason. Is that a difficult step? Do you find that people tell you it's a difficult step to take?
Yeah, definitely. I think it must be a bit like going to Alcoholics Anonymous, because when in fact, the ladies that came to my group said the reason it took so long for the group to take off was because when they saw my adverts, it took them a long time to get the courage to pick the phone up.
So it's not that they didn't want to join in, they just couldn't.
No, it wasn't. It just they didn't know how. I don't think they knew who was going to be on the other end of it. And so, yeah, it is difficult, and it took a little while for a few of them to open up. But now that they've been coming for a few months, each month they come, a little bit more comes out, and the more they talk about it, the less upset they are now.
We live in interesting times. We also live in very diverse times. Lots of people move away from home, the family home, to go and find work or to emigrate or to do whatever it is. Sometimes that's driven by career, sometimes that's driven by other circumstances. So there must be lots of people who have similar experiences to you. Indeed, there may well be people driving around at the moment who are thinking, well, yeah, I don't actually see much of my grandchildren, and there is a reason for that to be the case. Do you see a time when GranPart, as it's known in Milton Keynes, once it's established in Northamptonshire and maybe in other places as well, do you see yourselves growing as a voice to perhaps lobby for more involvement with grandparents in terms of grandparents' rights? Because it is a topic that has reached the House of Commons in the past, hasn't it? Yes,
in fact, I've been, the last two meets that I had in Milton Keynes, I got speakers to come along because I was getting to the stage where I thought it's got to go up a little gear, really. And actually on Monday I had a speaker come from the Grandparents Association, and this particular group that came are based in Aylesbury. And it was very interesting because that's exactly what they're doing. They've been running for 5 years, and they've written to the Queen, they've written to Prince Charles, they've been to the House of Parliament. They've also done a petition which they took to 10 Downing Street, because I'm not sure how far they've got in England. I know in Scotland it's got a little bit further, but you see, grandparents don't have any rights, and this is what they're trying to get across, because the lady that runs it, her grandchildren are actually in foster care, and she even went to the extreme of going to court over it. But after years and years of painful going visits to court, all she got was, well, I don't think they really should be with you. And so they've been in foster care for quite some time.
In the meantime, GranPart exists to share stories, to perhaps share the tissues out. I'm sure on occasions those are called on.
Yeah.
And certainly to offer, if not a shoulder to cry on, then certainly an opportunity for people to get it off their chest and to talk of their experiences. There is, of course, a support aspect to all of that. You want to get the Northamptonshire group of GranPart off the ground. You're going to be using the Hungry Horse at Sixfields, aren't you?
Yes, they've got a coffee area within that, and the manager very kindly said he would sort of section a part of it off. I don't know how sort of private it's going to be. I guess it's like going to be a suck it and see, because the room that I use in Milton Keynes is part of the parish council, and they let me have the room for free, and that is obviously closed off and very private. So, but yeah, that's my first port of call.
Perhaps
that is where it would be.
Perhaps something to develop as numbers grow. Perhaps you'll be needing somewhere a little bit more confidential, perhaps as the group does develop.
Yes, definitely.
When are you going to meet Marion? How do people make contact, and how do people come along in their ones, their twos, and obviously form the backbone of GranPart for the Northamptonshire end?
Okay, well, I don't have a date as yet, obviously, because I need to have some people. I have got a couple of people that are interested, so as soon as I can get a few more, I'll just, if I can either leave them with you or give them out now, I can just leave my contact details, and if anybody wants to just call me, as soon as I've got maybe 5 or 6 people, then I'll just book a date and we'll start from there.
Okay, I can just foresee one or two slight problems if we're routing everybody through to you individually. So, are you happy to give us a contact number out that we can use?
Yeah, I can do that. Yes. Would you like me to give that now?
Why not?
Okay. Shall I give you my landline?
Whichever you're more comfortable with, Marion.
Yeah, my landline is obviously 01604 83 0070.
So that's Northampton 830070.
And I also, if people don't want to call me because, again, they might know what to say, I can give you my email address.
By all means, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Marion, and it's spelled Marion. Then there's an underscore, J, underscore, T, at live.co.uk.
Just give us that email address once more, would you, Marion?
Yes, it's Marion underscore J underscore T at live.co.uk.
Okay, so it's a question of getting the first nucleus of people to form GranPart here in Northamptonshire. In the meantime, GranPart continues to operate in Milton Keynes. If you are a grandparent and if you would like to perhaps develop a relationship with people who have similar experiences to you, then Marion Turner would be delighted to hear from you. And who knows how quickly things could not grow in Northamptonshire to provide a little bit more in the way of self-help and self-support for grandparents in a similar situation. Marion, lovely to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.